You're tuning into Black and White Sports on YouTube. The no-holds-barred truth on sports. The main event starts now.
I'm back. Rodriguez for Black and White Sports. We're going to talk about LeBron James and where he stands in the GOAT conversation because a former really good basketball player, the Pistons' Rasheed Wallace in Portland, played for several teams, but he was a really good player. Rasheed Wallace was a good player and, in fact, had several good years in a row. Well, he has come out and made some comments, kind of like comments we have echoed here on the channel. If LeBron had to play in that other era of basketball, LeBron might not have as much success as he has had now. And it should be noted, it took him a good while to even have success. One could say, even though him and Rasheed crossed paths for about 8 years, Rasheed came in 1995, okay? A good while, a totally different brand of basketball, a good while before LeBron came in 2003. Well, he's come out and said, I don't think LeBron would have the kind of success he had if he had to come up and actually start like Rasheed did in that era. Why? Because the game was a lot more physical. Dennis Rodman just called out the NBA over that. I did a video on that. So let's check that out right now. And LeBron James' success based on era he's playing in. Rasheed Wallace says, now look, they did play during some of the same era, but there was a lot of hard-nosed basketball between 95 and 2002, okay? In fact, I would say right around that 2005, 6, 7 era is when a lot of the physicality went out of the game. Former NBA All-Star Rasheed Wallace made a strange prediction about the trajectory of LeBron James's career if he was playing in the big man's era. We talked about the game down low, that post game, has basically disappeared. In other words, you're driving to the basket, you don't look up and see David Robinson standing in front of you, or Hakeem Olajuwon, or Patrick Ewing, regardless of how big and physical LeBron James thinks he is. Wallace, a four-time All-Star who played from 95 to 2003, appeared in a recent episode of $1 Million Worth of Game and said James wouldn't have been as successful. He probably would have done good with his physical stature, with him being bigger than the majority of the rest of the players, Wallace said. So he probably would have held his own, but I don't think he would have been as successful as he is now. It's a whole different era back then. I couldn't necessarily say he would have been a beast, but I think he would have held his own. Wallace only played 8 seasons without LeBron James in the league. James entered the league as one of the most highly touted players in 2003, and for the most part, the two played in the same era. Yeah, but that 8 years difference is big. Wallace played on the Washington Bullets, the Portland Trail Blazers in the late 1990s, early 2000s. He played for the Hawks and Detroit Pistons before 2 years away from basketball. He played 1 year with the Knicks. Sheed went on one step further and said Kevin Durant wouldn't have been as successful either. And look, Kevin Durant's body type sure wouldn't have helped him back in that NBA era. Wallace, who won an NBA title with the 2004 Pistons, finished his career with 14.4 points and 6.7 rebounds. And we all know Rasheed was one of the more physical players in the NBA, especially in the era that allowed him to do so. We talked about when Steph Curry and all the guys started shooting up threes, the game changed, okay? And we got to remember, LeBron didn't win a title for a while after coming into the league. Right as the league was starting to change is about the time that LeBron started achieving that NBA championship success. And I think that's what Rasheed is getting at here. All right? He's not saying LeBron wouldn't have been successful. You're just not going to have as much success because the people that are defending the basket against you were different back then. an entirely different brand of basketball. And it would have been rougher. It would have been rougher on LeBron, absolutely. And look, he sure couldn't have done it if he couldn't have spun his teams into super teams the way he has the last several years, which has led him to some success. And then with the Lakers, not so great. Not so great so far. So you're seeing more and more of this. More and more players are willing to step up and say, look, if LeBron had to play in the 80s, in the 90s, in the early 2000s, he probably wouldn't have been as successful, okay? And that means a lot. Can you imagine LeBron driving in the lane, looks up, and Karl Malone is there? I mean, really, think about it, okay? It was just a bunch of defensive monsters underneath there. So many guys could play defense. They protected the rim. I mean, Dikembe Mutombo, it would have been just a different situation if LeBron had to come up in that era. Would he have won a title? Probably would have won one or two, maybe. But he certainly, I don't think, would be talked about in that realm of GOATness. And I think era's got a lot to do with that. That's why everybody looks at Michael Jordan as having his head front and center on the Mount Rushmore of sports immortality, because Jordan dominated a very rough era of the NBA. Absolutely. Knicks, Pacers, Pistons. I mean, that was some tough basketball back then. Charles Barkley, the Suns, right? And Jordan went through them. He did. Tell me what you think. Black and white sports fans, hit subscribe. Peace. I'm out. Till next time.
Thanks for watching the show. Be sure to like, comment, and subscribe. Be sure to tune in next time on Black and White Sports.